Good afternoon, everyone, from very sunny right now, Wellington, New Zealand, the capital of New Zealand. I hope I didn't get that wrong, or else it would be really awkward. Reason I'm making this video today is recently I've been going through my gear as we've been here, and I realized that I haven't really given the 90mm f2 much attention, or rather the attention that it deserves. For the most part throughout this trip, I've been doing lots of hikes and things where I've only needed to take one camera and one lens. So throughout the trip, I've been using the 16-55 Mark I, the original version of the Pro zoom lens, the red badge. And it's a fantastic lens, and I've really enjoyed using it. It's been great. It's done everything that I've needed it to on most of my trips, being about a 24-70 equivalent in full frame. The problem that I've been having, though, aside from general image quality not being as sharp as what I think it could be, the main issue I've been having with it, though, is that I've found having a range of 16-55, especially when you're just shooting day-to-day and street photography, it gives you too many options, which can often be in itself a bit of an issue. One thing that I've been trying to challenge myself to do is to use primes a bit more frequently, as they just put you into a bit of a creative limitation, which I actually think can be a good thing. One YouTuber that I watch quite frequently is James Popsies. He does landscape photography particularly, and he looks at how humans and nature interact. In his most recent video, he was talking a lot about using that creative limitation to put yourself into a bit of a constraint, or to have a project or something in mind to limit your opportunities. While it's great to walk out with, two different zoom lenses, a couple primes, and have all of those things in your bag, they may actually be more of a constraint on what you're able to do, and they might actually make you a bit more indecisive. From the past few days, what I've found shooting almost exclusively with the 90mm f2 and at times the 23mm 1.4 is that they've allowed me to focus a little bit more on detail and about things in a scene that I actually care about. And to change what I'm seeing and to change the perspective, I have to physically move, which makes me think a little bit more about whether a shot is worth it. A lot of times what I've been doing is taking a few shots from one point of view at a bunch of different focal lengths with a zoom lens. So for example, I'd take a wide with the 16, I'd maybe zoom into like a 35 and then zoom to a 55 and have three different points of view from one perspective. But I don't think it's altogether that interesting, and I think that having to physically move actually helps you to decide whether or not the image is worth it in the first place, which I've been trying to think more about as I realize that I've been taking way too many shots and overloading my SD card. By the time I get back, I start editing. A day out, I've maybe shot 400 images, and then I have to edit through them all. As much as I like editing, it's not really conducive to taking good images. I think it was Ansel Adams who said that most photographers take one good photo per year, which maybe is an exaggeration, but I like the idea that keeping it as minimal as possible can be really effective. And so I've been trying to adopt more of that mantra. The reason I actually went back to the 90 is I've started shooting concerts again down here in New Zealand. I'm currently on tour with a band called the Powder Shoots. They're fantastic. You should check them out. And so I started rolling with the 90 a little bit more just to see what it could do from distance and to get close-up shots of the artists. So whether it's focusing in on playing guitar or some close-ups of the drumsticks hitting the snare, things like that, where I can get a little bit more detail in the shot. Or if I'm just standing a little bit further away, it's the longest lens that I have aside from the 55mm, so it does help me to get those more detailed shots. But the reason for making the video in the first place is that I've been having my doubts about Fujifilm recently, and I've thought about switching over to either Canon or Sony. To be frank, I think that this switch is inevitable for me. It's going to happen regardless. But using the 90 has actually revived my interest in using these cameras a little bit more, because it is just so sharp. I've used pretty much every Fuji prime that exists currently from Fujinon, and I've just found this one, I come away with the best shots out of anything that I've shot so far. I first used this about a year ago when I was shooting concerts. I think it was for a festival that I was shooting, and a band called Pup and Dizzy, two artists that I really, really like. And I had an opportunity. It was one of the first bigger concerts that I got to shoot, and still probably one of the biggest ones that I've shot so far. And I brought the 90 out on a rental. I just had it for a weekend, and it blew me away. And for the next couple weekends and probably the next few months afterwards, I would go back to the shop and ask specifically for the 90mm f2. Even though the 50-140 was available, which is also a great lens, I just couldn't help but fall in love with some of the images that I took with the 90mm f2. So I won't pretend to be some tech channel that knows all about these different lenses and how they're constructed. That's not really what I'm here to do, but it's more based on feeling, and I know that's not necessarily helpful, but I've found that every single time I use the lens, I'm able to come out with the sharpest images possible comparatively with my other lenses. So the 16-55, the 18-55 kit lens, the 35mm 1.4, which is a classic Fuji lens I've used a few times. It's just not the same. This is the lens that would prevent me from switching from Fujifilm because I genuinely love it that much. A few of the images that I'm going to have on screen throughout this video are going to be taken with that 90mm, and a few with the 23. I'll make sure to mark them. But this video is basically just for anybody who's thinking about picking up the 90mm f2. Usually you can find it used for about $800, maybe $900. I think new they go for about $1,200 to $1,300, and I promise these lenses are 100% worth it. I've also just found that with the primes, I seem to be having more fun with photography, as it feels a little bit more like I'm using my film camera, and I recognize the importance of taking a good shot in the first place with my film camera, and I think it's just helping to emulate that feeling. So while most people might just stick to perhaps using the zoom lenses and just not changing it physically, having the restraint to not touch the zoom, I think it is a little bit easier when you put your frame of mind into, okay, I'm shooting 90mm today, I need to focus on detail, or I need to focus on close-ups, or I'm shooting 23mm today, I'd prefer to shoot wide and try to capture a little more detail physically up close. I think all parts of this have their merit, but this is mainly just to say that I am in love with this lens, and if you are thinking about picking it up, I promise you it will be worth it. One other recommendation I would make too, Roman Fox did a really great video on the 90mm for street photography, I want to say about a year ago, and that is a very, very valuable resource. I have found that it is a lot of fun to take this in street photography, and I'll put a couple images on screen that maybe help to show that. But it does make things a lot more difficult, and you really do need to focus on what you are shooting in the shots that you were taking. By the time you've gotten to this point, I might have already included some B-roll of the wharf in Wellington and some of the shots that I was taking. I haven't quite got to that part yet, and I'm just trying to race the sun up here, which is going sort of. I think I've got about 3 more minutes left, so hopefully I've gotten everything recorded that I needed to by now. Again, I think that this lens is the one reason that a lot of people would not switch out of Fujifilm. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough for me in the long term, because I do love it. It might just be worth keeping one body and keeping the 90 and another prime. But short of buying the 56mm 1.2, I do think that this is Fujifilm's best lens. And for me, as a sometimes street photography, sometimes general life, and mostly concert shooter, it is a fantastic lens. You just have to know how to work with the limits that you're given. And one more note that I'm going to make too is that this lens is phenomenal for video. It's very difficult if you don't have a stabilizer or a gimbal of some kind or a tripod. And shooting it handheld, you will notice that there will be some shakiness, and maybe that's actually due in part to my caffeine intake. But without a tripod or a gimbal, it will suffer in some ways from shakiness. But the videos that I'm going to put up on screen now are some that I've taken of the band over the past few weeks, and they just show you I mean, in my mind, incomparable quality with the other Fujifilm lenses. The 23mm, don't get me wrong, I love it, but from distance and as a video lens, this thing absolutely rules. One thing I forgot to point out at the beginning of the video that I'm going to mention now as well, the 90mm on an APS-C body, such as the X-H2S and most Fujifilm cameras, if not all Fujifilm cameras right now, it is going to be an equivalent of about 135, so 135 millimeters. Anyways, the light is very quickly dying on me, and I'm hoping that this will stay consistent, but also recognizing that the light's going to disappear, and I deeply apologize. I'm going to have a few things coming out soon, hopefully. I'm working on a bunch of projects right now. I have a South Island video for New Zealand that I'm going to have up soon, and I think it's going to blow the first one out of the water. And just as I started wrapping up, the light came back. Camera's approaching temperature limit. Thank you, Fujifilm, for consistently having overheating cameras. I appreciate that about you. It makes my day so nice. So drop a comment, let me know what you think of the lens, and hopefully you've had time to try it out. Peace.